I prefer this one. Okay. We're going to start this evening with a handout. I want you to handle it carefully at first because we're going to do something with it to show you something about the power and the nature of money. I think I'm on a short tether, so I'll put that there.
Oh, sure, I'd like to take some money.
How many give today to Good Heart? I want to make sure that. First thing I'd like to suggest to you about this handout is that you turn it face down. That means George Washington's face down on the palm of your hand. Yeah, it's President's Day. Oh, it's George Washington's birthday. Okay. Right.
And this is a birthday present to us, right?
That's right. That's right. From George to you. Through me. Now, take the hand that you would usually use for giving healing energy. For most people, this is the right hand. The left hand is most appropriate for drawing away swelling or pain. The right hand is the one that should be made hot and positive and giving in nature. And if you would just put the dollar bill on your lap for a moment, not holding it in your hand, close your eyes and focus on someone you know who needs healing in some way. Now, that healing can be physical healing, it can be healing in relationships, in emotions, in prosperity. Maybe they need healing of their relationship with money. Somebody that you really care about. This needs to be absolutely genuine. Caring is the working word here. Do you care for this person? It can be yourself. It is best if it is someone else that you care about a lot who you're aware really, really needs this kind of healing energy. Close your eyes and image the face of the person you want to give healing to. Get as good an image as you can create with your mind of the face of the person that you would like to send healing to. When you have their face in your mind, begin to call their name over and over inside your mind like a mantra. Just repeat their name again and again, softly inside yourself, as if you're trying to call their attention to you. You're calling this person. I'm going to give you a few moments to do that. If you have the image of this person firmly in your mind, and you're calling their name over and over, I'd like you then to turn your left hand face up on your lap. And turn your left hand into a negative magnetic pole. By negative, I don't mean negativity, I mean drawing. The negative pole of a magnet that pulls toward you. Pull away from them any negative energy, including swelling, inflammation, infection, negative emotions, all things that you might classify as hot. Hot is also acute. If a person has an acute illness, an acute infection, it is hot. Heat needs to be drawn away with your left hand. It can reduce swelling. It can draw pain into your left hand. Don't be afraid to draw pain into your left hand. Pain is only concentrated energy. And you may even feel it momentarily as pain in your hand, but don't be concerned about it if you do. It will turn into energy as it flows through your body. As pain loses its concentration of energy, it becomes dispersed energy, and it will make you more alive. So take away all negativity from the situation of the person you're focusing on with your left hand. If you do this effectively enough, the literal temperature of your left hand will drop. It will become cooler. The circulation in your left hand will withdraw somewhat, and the color of your left hand will change. It will become less red, more blue. Blue is the healing energy that will break a fever. So draw away negativity, pain, and all hot things, all concentrated things of the illness that you seek to heal. Draw it in with your left hand. Now turn your right hand face up on your lap and make it as hot as you possibly can. From your right hand you are giving positive energy to replace pain, to restore strength. Take away fever with the left and give energy, aliveness, health, vitality with your right hand. Now turn this into a really compassionate caring. It will not work as an experiment. We're not experimenting. We are actually doing this exercise. We want this healing to actually happen. Don't make it a test. Don't make it an experiment. Make it a real giving of love and caring. Make your right hand as hot as you can. After you have done that, then take this handout, this dollar bill, turn it with George Washington's face down on your right hand. And it should be placed lengthwise in your hand, like this. And notice that the energy vortexes of your hand are not in the palm, they are at the heel of the hand and the tip of the fingers. For that reason, the dollar bill will begin to curl up as this is now, because this energy is coming up from underneath it. Now, if you focus long enough and hard enough with this, if your meditation is effective enough, it will actually curl up into a circle, quite like that, until the ends touch. But it will do that without your having to move your hand at all. So work on that and see how much energy you can get pouring out through the vortexes of your hand, and you may open your eyes and look at it. And you can look around to compare with others if you like. It's usually not a good idea to compare yourself with others. It's better to just automatically know that there is no comparison to what you are. Is it working for you? Is it curling up? Let me see. Hold up your hand. There we go. Yeah. David, you got a real good one. Now, if it doesn't work really effectively for you right now, I want to point out that sometimes in a group setting like this, where there are other people around, if you feel compared or shy or whatever, that may withdraw some of the energy. Do this again in private, when you're really caring for someone, and see if this bill has to be crisp, brand new, uncirculated. No one else's hands have touched it. Look, works better on your left hand. Some people have reverse-handedness. Now, it's not always determined by whether you're left-handed or right-handed, but it does work by choice. Even if you're right-handed, you can choose to change the polarity to your left. So whatever works best for you is fine. Let's get some real power in there. Maybe you need to do another hoot. Get your energy unstuck from the red chakra. You got to expect this to work, you know. That's the working law. Expect it. Mine's not doing so well. David, you look like you got the ones doing the best. Marcus, you're not doing badly either. It's curling right up. Okay. This dollar bill, now that you've put your energy into it, your healing and your loving energy, I want you to keep it for yourself. This is not to be turned back in. In case you feel that this is simply moisture or heat that makes this dollar curl up, turn it over. Put George Washington's face up and start the process again. You'll find that it will curl again. If it were moisture or heat, it would not do that. There was an eminent physicist who showed me this exercise first. Good response there. Great, you got it. It was only when I had tried this with a dollar bill that I realized that the vortexes are not in the palm of the hand. I had thought it was right here, but it's in the fingertips and the heel of the hand. These are the positive points, fingertips and the heel. The negative point is right across this ridge of your hand. So that's why it curls up the way that it does. Do take it home and practice with it again, because this is, what you're doing now is called talismagic. Have you ever heard of talismagic? No? Familiar with the word? Does the word make you nervous? Would you rather not talk about magic? Okay. Let me just put the word on the board. How about blue? No. Green is better for money. Right? Talismagic. What that means is the use of a talisman to communicate a specific kind of energy or produce a particular kind of result. Actually, the dollar bill is created of talismagic. It was created by talismagic, by men who believed in talismagic. So I'm going to give you a few words about talismagic and the dollar bill, and let you know that there are several countries whose currency uses talismagic, in addition to the United States. And I want to tell you a little bit about the history of this one first. This is the history of the Great Seal. The Great Seal of the United States. It was created by some men who were initiates of mystery schools. I'll give you some names first and the particular mystery schools that they are connected with. I've combined their names here. Benjamin Franklin, let's put him down first. Benjamin Franklin was an initiate of an order called the August Body. And that school was located in Paris, France. George Washington and Thomas Jefferson were initiates of the Scottish Rite of Edinburgh, And the Scottish Rite Temple of Edinburgh, that particular lodge of the Freemasonic order, is the most influential mystery school in setting up the United States. There was a third, John Adams, was a member of the Rose Cross. And these mystery schools worked together in creating the United States. Not just the Great Seal, but the Constitution, the bylaws, quite a number of other bodies. But one thing that I'd like you to know about, when these men came together, Franklin, Washington, Adams, and quite a number of others, and I've given you only 3 of the names out of a dozen or more men who were committed initiates of mystery schools. It might even be interesting to mention that because of Benjamin Franklin's connection with the august body in Paris, he requested to become the United States ambassador to France so that he could be there for the meetings of his initiatory school, and was successful in doing so. What these men had in common was that they believed in a very ancient idea that in our modern time we call symbology. They wouldn't have used the term symbology because symbology doesn't express appropriately what their belief was. But when they talked about symbology, when they talked about symbols, they believed that the power of what is symbolized is contained in the symbol. That is based on a Hermetic law called as above, so below. Is that real clear to everybody? You know exactly what that means? Well, oh, you guys are not the most talkative group we've had. What they're referring to is this: if you take any great power, whatever that power, whether it's the power of the lightning, the power of the sun. The power of the sun obviously was the greatest known power to the ancients as far as the physical power is concerned. They believed that when you make a symbol of that and you honor the symbol or you form a relationship with the symbol, you get just as much energy and benefit out of the symbol as you get out of the real thing. That is a process of invocation. Let me take it a step further and tell you how that might work. There was an occasion for me when in a frustrated state, I thought, I've become aware of the sylphs, the undines, the spirits of earth, air, fire, and water. And this happened to be a winter's day when it was very cold, and I thought it would be wise to invite the spirits of fire into the room. It was particularly meaningful on that day because Sharon had tried several times to light the fireplace, and it just simply went out every time. And so it was not burning. I was very cold. I didn't know anyone was in the room. And I got really, on fire about this thing, and I said, all right, spirits of fire, I want you to manifest yourself in that fireplace. And Sharon was standing on the stair when the fire went out like this into the room. She gave a little squeal, and that's when I knew that she was present and had witnessed what we were doing there. But it was one of my experiences of calling upon very real beings. And the secret to this is not being a magician or something like that. The secret is making friends of living beings. If you don't know that they're living, you can't form a friendship relationship. That friendship relationship is familiarity. When you get familiar with a friend, you can call that friend at will. If you know a couple of things, the law of names, we just used it. When you were calling over and over the name of the person whose image you held in your mind, there is a universal law of names that says, when you call a being's name, whether that being is an angel, an archangel, a mortal human being, or any other being, a race god, or whatever kind of being you're able to relate to, including a being whose name is truth, a being whose name is love. When you realize that truth is not a statement of fact, it is a living being with whom you can make friends, and you can walk and talk with truth, and truth will talk with you and will teach you and will can be invoked by the calling of its name. Love can be invoked by the calling of its name. Now let me give you another illustration. If you've ever been up at Hearthfire Lodge, or perhaps if you haven't, you've been somewhere in an orchard on a cold morning. This is just before dawn. It's still dark. There's frost on the leaves in the orchard. There's ice in the crotches of the limbs of the trees. There are dark black buds that are sort of furry, and they're just beginning to develop on the fruit trees. They have not yet bloomed, but they're there, and they're dark, black, furry, velvet little buds. Now, at a time like that, if you're alone in this orchard, just as the sun is about to come up, you start to see rays of light coming over the horizon, and those rays of light turn into pink and violet and perhaps blue, and they begin to be beautiful colors. And as those colors start coming up, the frost, the ice in these trees in the orchard begin to fall to the ground, and you hear a sound. If you listen for it, it sounds like thousands of tiny little feet running all over the floor of the orchard. Did you ever experience that? No? Well, let me tell you what happens. You see, unfortunately, in this country, we become educated. And when you're educated, you know that the sun doesn't come up. Instead, the earth turns on its axis relative to the position of the sun, allowing photons to come over the horizon and to strike these black, furry, velvety buds. And the light units are converted into thermal units, and these thermal units then melt the ice, and drips fall from the trees to the floor, and there are not any feet scurrying around at all. That's fact. Now, if you're uneducated, and you're from a very romantic culture that knows that all things live, then you go into the same orchard on the same morning, and you stand in the dark where everything is absolutely still, and then you recognize that the heralds of the Sun King begin to come over the horizon in great robes of blue and purple and pink. And as they come heralding the arrival of the Sun King, the undines which have come out of the earth and have imprisoned the trees during the day try to take the treasures from the trees, the crystalline forms that they have made in the crotch of the trees, and they're running back down into the earth because they can't stand the presence of the Sun King. If you live in that world, you live in a world that's alive. Everything is alive. All right, you got it. When you see things in this way, I really want to stress the point that neither one of these two scenarios is more truthful or correct than the other. To say the sun doesn't come up is a literal truth, but to say the sun does come up is also an observable truth. And one is not more correct than the other. They are different points of view. And if you realize that crystalline forms are the property of the gnomes that live under the ground, and there they form crystals, but they do come out at night to see the stars so that they will get the patterns of the stars to create their crystals. And this is how they make flowers. If you want to know more about this, you might want to read some of Goethe's work. Goethe was the poet who inspired Rudolf Steiner so much in understanding that these mathematical formulas are not just dead things on paper. There are really living energies that we can relate to and live with and work with. And when we get to know them as friends, they start working for us. Now, if we don't know them as friends, and when we refuse to relate with them as friends, they still will have a relationship with us, even if we don't know that they exist. For example, money. Money is a symbol for some people, has been a symbol for eons, a symbol of greed. And you and I grew up in a country, in a society, in a culture that told us it's not nice to want money. Now, there was a little problem with that. We couldn't help wanting money, but we could lie about it. And if we lie about it well enough to convince ourselves that it's not all right to want money, I don't want to be motivated by money, if we say that enough, money will say to us, okay, see you later. We'll just float right on by to somebody who finds us of some value and knows how to put us to work. Who was it that taught us that it's not all right to want money or to have money? Who taught the Puritans to feel that way? People with money. People with money who were bankers, who were weapons manufacturers. These are the people who taught us that nice people don't want money. They didn't mind not being nice people because they wanted money. But they wanted you and me to believe that it's not nice to want money. And if we can keep money out of the hands of the loving, caring people of the world, we can maintain the status quo. And what is the status quo? Status quo is that right now, while you and I are in the relative comfort of this room, 1/4 of the people of the world are starving. Now I want to ask you a question. Is it all right for the loving people of the world to dismiss the possibility of what they could do with money? Do you have any right to be poor? When if you were the wealthy ones on this planet and you are loving, those people wouldn't be hungry. But as long as the money grubbers, the weapons manufacturers, and the bank executives can convince you and me it's not all right for us to want money, they can keep 1/4 of the world starving because you and I can't do anything about it because we're not motivated by money. Well, honey, go over there and give them lots of your love and see if it fills their bellies. You need money in order to make a difference in the world in this day. And it's all right to know what money is. Money is nothing more than a promissory note. Promissory note. I promise by giving you this note to communicate my caring and my love to you. If I didn't find something about you of value, I wouldn't give you one of these. And that's what we do all day, every day. If you don't find something that somebody does of value, you don't give them money. So money is a statement of worth. Do you believe that people are worthwhile? These notes are created for the specific purpose of letting people know that what they are giving you, what they're providing for you, is worthwhile. Now, can you think of any object, anything in the world that is more spiritual in nature than that? Could anything have a more spiritual nature than the ability to communicate love and caring to another human being? If it is that, I mean, it doesn't, do you know what it costs to make one of these? 1/8. 1/8 of 1 cent. So that's what it's intrinsically worth as far as ink on paper. And for me to give her that, 1/8 of a cent, that's what you're worth. Okay. What we do have in this particular talisman that we call a dollar bill is we have something that is made of living fibers. By law, it has to be made of cotton, linen, and silk. Why? Because these guys knew that it matters what it's made of. And they prescribed that into law all the way back in 1776, even though dollar bills were not printed then. Looking forward to the time that they would be, they first passed a law that these would be printed in pure silver. That was the original intent, for the Great Seal of the United States to be in circular form. And circular form for a particular reason. That duplicated the form of the earth and of wholeness, of oneness. So they intended for it to be in circular form, and they designed the seal, as you see it on this bill, in the circular form. And within those circles, they put the things that they found most precious. They put things that they called universal symbols. You know what makes a symbol universal? Anybody? Come on, you smart guys, turn up. No, Thomas, not you. Patrick.
Something that everyone relates to.
Okay. If it's universal, everyone relates to it, is that enough to say? Understand it. Is that it?
In all cultures in one form or another?
Okay. It is found in all cultures, and it's not so much that we understand it, but even without understanding, even if we don't recognize the symbol as meaning something in particular, we still have the same response. The response to it is universal. That's what makes a universal symbol. Even if you don't know what it means, the evoked response to it is the same in all people that encounter it. So they were looking for universal symbols here, and the first universal symbol that they came up with in creating this is the circle. When people see a circle, they see something that is whole, it is complete, it is endless. And much of the ancient universal symbology shows here a serpent, the mouth of the serpent that is swallowing its own tail, and that's part of this universal symbology. The serpent swallowing its own tail means it goes on and on and on, not only in an eternal circle, but in a cycle of birth and death. And the death cannot overcome the birth, because as it swallows its own tail, it is regenerated and it keeps going on and on and on. So they put this regeneration symbol as the very first of their expressions of talismanic on this thing that they call the Great Seal. Then they went a step further. They put a bird in flight. And the bird that they chose originally was a phoenix. Now, because this had to do with the birth of a particular country, it was thought that this phoenix should be inscribed on the Great Seal in the form of an animal which actually is indigenous to this country. For that reason, Benjamin Franklin suggested that the form of the phoenix should be a turkey. Aren't you glad he didn't get his way? I mean, the United States can be a real turkey sometimes. But the other suggestion was the bald eagle. Particular reason for a bald eagle its appearance had to do with it. It looks a lot like a phoenix, and a bald eagle has a place on its crest that is empty, that is bald, and that to them was the symbol of the opening of the seventh chakra, or the power center open to source. And so this cap on the bald eagle was also referred by them as the bird's yarmulke. You know what that is? You know what a yarmulke is? Tell us, Susan. Skull cap. It's a cap worn by quite a number of ancient cultures, including Judaism and Islam, that covers the crown of the head in a symbol of the crown of enlightenment. The idea is that as we go into the holy presence, we put on this skull cap for prayer, opening our crown to input from the source that is above. Also humbling us before that source, but opening the crown chakra for inspiration. So they considered the bald eagle for that reason. Now, Franklin, in fact, argued that the bald eagle is a bird that is, what was the word that he said? Do you remember? Immoral. Immoral in its character. He considered it so because it was a predatory bird. And maybe a couple of other things about it he didn't consider particularly moral. But anyway, they adopted the bald eagle only much later. The original drawing was a drawing of a phoenix. The phoenix is a bird that occurs only one at a time in all the world. There's never more than one living phoenix at any time in the world. That's according to the ancient Egyptian stories. It has a nest that is made of the bones of its predecessors. It lives 1,000 years. At the end of 1,000 years, it returns to the bones of the predecessors and allows itself to, sort of evaporate and leave its bones as a part of this nest. And then it becomes a flame. And as the flame dies down to the ashes, a new phoenix rises from the ashes to fly again, the most divine of all birds. Now that had particular meaning for these men because all of these men, Jefferson, Adams, Washington, Franklin, all of them believed that the United States of America was a reincarnation, karmically, of a nation called Atlantis. That's written in the records of the birth of this country. They considered it to be Atlantis rising phoenix-like from the ashes of ancient Atlantis. And with that idea, they decided this country must be a country that never makes the mistakes that were made in ancient Atlantis. Their understanding of ancient Atlantis came primarily from Plato's writing. What did they do to keep that from coming? They wrote a constitution. They intended for that to hold this country intact in a particular way. However, the Constitution was taken mostly from the state organ, or the Constitution, the agreement, the land agreement, of a group called the Iroquois Nation. So for those of you who have been taught that Thomas Jefferson wrote the Constitution, you have to do a little research and find out he didn't write the Constitution, he copied the Constitution from the Iroquois Nation, making only one change. The only change was that in the United States Constitution, individuals are allowed to own property, which they can keep other people from having access to. That did not exist in the Iroquois Nation and is the only thing in the United States Constitution that is not exactly like the Constitution of the Iroquois Nation. Property rights, they called it. So they believed that this nation must be held to a divine purpose. It had a divine destiny, and they wanted to make sure that it would follow that destiny. They thought that the best way to do that was not by writing a constitution and a Bill of Rights, but rather by creating a universal symbol that would affect everyone who touched it, especially if they see it and feel it. So they dictated that this instrument should be made of cotton, linen, and silk, which are living natural fibers, and that the ink impressed upon it, injected in it, should be made of natural metal minerals, nothing synthesized. That holds true to this day. It is still made of natural metal minerals, and it is injected into the paper, not printed upon it. So it's printed with an injection press. In the symbology, they created these things. You see the sunburst over the head of the phoenix. It contains 13 stars, which are arranged in the symbol that is sometimes called the Star of David or the Seal of Solomon. Those 13 stars, you've been told, I'm sure, if you've studied American history. Does everyone have this handout? Sorry, I forgot to tell you to hand them out. Go ahead. No, the serpent doesn't appear. The circle around it, this circle, is what takes the place of the serpent swallowing its tail. It was drawn this way originally with a phoenix, then it was refined into the bald eagle and the circle. Now, in this burst of light are 13 stars arranged in the form of the Star of David, and this burst of light, you might want to make a note here, it is called the Shekinah. The Shekinah. Who knows what the Shekinah is? Not everybody at once now. Some of you know what the Shekinah is. David? No? Okay. Do you remember reading or hearing from the Bible about the tabernacle in the wilderness? The tabernacle in the wilderness was a kind of a temple built sort of like this. I better change colors here. Somebody's trying to tell me something. In the back of this tabernacle in the wilderness was a place called the Holy of Holies. And in that Holy of Holies was a box that had two winged creatures whose wings came together over the box. This was called the Ark of the Covenant. And this little spot in the Ark, there's not anything there. That's an empty spot. It's sometimes drawn as a radiation of light called the Ein Sof Or. And according to the Old Testament, this tabernacle in the wilderness constantly had a pillar of fire and smoke above it. You could see smoke by day and fire by night. That smoke and fire rising from this tabernacle was called the Shekinah. And what you should know about this tabernacle is that it was in the center of a circle. Better draw this way, I think. It's in the center of a circle that had 12 spokes. And these spokes, at the end of these spokes, were the 12 tribes of Israel. And in the center was the 13th tribe of Israel. Did you know there were 13 tribes? Yes, Levi is the 13th tribe that was in the center here with the tabernacle. And from the tabernacle then came a vertical path. Now these are called the 12 paths through the wilderness. They are also called the paths of Karma. The 13th path is a vertical path going straight to heaven. That path is called the path of grace. So one could wander through the paths through the wilderness. These are called the paths through the wilderness, through the 12 gates of Jerusalem. And wandering through those 12 paths in the night, in the wilderness, with a stone for a pillow is called the dark night of the soul. And you can wander there for generation after generation for thousands and thousands of years, or you can choose finally to take the 13th path, the vertical path, and ascend above these paths through the wilderness. So you've been told then about this symbol that there were 13 stars there because there are 13 tribes, or 13 states. But why were there 13 states? 13 colonies? Because these men knew about the 13th path. And so they used 13 over and over and over on this piece of talus magic. There are 13 stars here. There are 13 arrows in the right claw, the left claw of the bald eagle. There are 13 leaves and 13 berries on the olive branch in the right claw. Now, the left-hand claw with the 13 arrows is the claw of power, of what we call the yang energy that is a protection, the pillar of severity it is called. In the right-hand path is the olive branch, 13 leaves, 13 berries, symbolizing peace, and the head of the eagle is always turned in the direction of the olive branch in a statement on our currency. Get that word, currency. They wanted something that would pass from hand to every American over and over and over again, that would make an automatic response in the mind that says this nation will always seek peace. The head of the eagle, which represents the executive branch of our government, is always turned toward the olive branch. The breastplate here is Congress, the stripes, the representatives, and the horizontal stripes, the Senate or the upper house. And the 9 tail feathers here are the 9 justices of the Supreme Court. So we have this eagle that is in flight, always in flight, always looking toward peace. And the executive branch is stating a specific purpose. It's always looking toward peace, and it always carries in its mouth a banner which says E pluribus unum, which means out of many people, one purpose, one ideal, one direction. Not just out of many people, a melting pot of the United States, become one nation, but one in purpose, single-minded, pointed toward a particular ideal. That's what the banner was to mean. On the obverse side of the Great Seal, they wrote across the top they wrote something that Franklin found as they were gathering these symbols of 13 together. In the Shekinah, the burst of glory. In the 13 arrows, the 13 leaves and 13 berries. That also meant the 12 colleges of life are ruled over by the hierophant of a mystery school, which also means this planet, and specifically this nation, to them. The nation itself was to be a mystery school consisting of 12 colleges in one university. These 12 colleges would be initiated by one hierophant. And that hierophant was to be the universal Christ. When I say the universal Christ, that does not mean the Christ of Christianity, but the universal Christ. And that word means God in expression. God in expression is the hierophant of this mystery school. And as they put these talismans together, Benjamin Franklin said, "I have seen him with us, and he is smiling on our endeavor." That's what Annuit Septus means. He is smiling on our endeavor. They put an unfinished pyramid here as the building blocks of this nation. The pyramid is built of 13 courses of stone. So we have another 13 marking the 13th path. The date is put on the base stone. It is deliberately shown as unfinished. And then they give very specific directions for how to finish it. That is the all-seeing eye in the capstone of the pyramid, which is the eye of inspiration, the eye of intuition, the eye of guidance. So what they were saying in their final piece of work on this talisman was the completion of this pyramid will be done, will be accomplished always by divine guidance. So they committed the nation to divine guidance in doing this, and then underneath it, as a kind of foundation under this unfinished pyramid, they wrote, to establish a new order of the ages. Really interesting how many times that phrase has been used in the past year or 2 years in a supposed new relationship between East and West. The politicians are saying we're establishing a new order of the ages. Now, they would never call themselves New Age people. But damned if these guys didn't. Right here, they said this is a New Age country, New Age nation. It is founded for the very purpose of establishing a new order of the ages. So these are the things that they left to influence our relationship with money. They intended to do it in a specific way. Their agreement was, let's take out of money the idea and the concept and the feeling of greed, and let's replace it with an understanding that this instrument is a sacred instrument to follow divine guidance, to be seen as exchange of value, to give and receive love among people, love and appreciation. Let's make this symbol no longer a symbol of greed, but a symbol of love and appreciation. And for that purpose, this bill was created. Now, it's kind of strange saying all of this to an international audience. As small as we are international. I want to make the point that most nations of the world have found the importance of making their currency into talismanic. And whatever nation you find, they may approach it in a little different direction. One of the things that you should know, for example, about England, about the monarchy, is they have a system in which there is a beloved figure, supposedly universally beloved figure, and they can keep that figure universally beloved by not engaging that figure in controversial politics. So you can hate the prime minister, but love the royal family. And it's a kind of healthy device to set up in that kind of way, because anyone who becomes a public figure is a target of energies that most of us don't understand. There is an energy called the energy of psychic attack. You know what that means? Did you ever do it? You never attacked anybody psychically? I bet you did. And you might just wish to be thankful that you weren't disciplined enough to maintain it intensely enough and long enough to produce the results that you had imagined in your mind. But some people can, and it's pretty damn dangerous. It's dangerous for two reasons. One is because it's effective. Now, if you look at laws, universal laws in this way, if healing is possible, they are only obverse and reverse of the same kind of energy. And if you're powerful enough to heal, you're powerful. It's a little bit limited in its scope. It can do what the receiver of the psychic attack will allow it to do. What will we allow to be done to us by psychic attack? Anything that we feel guilty enough to deserve. And if we take that which we're calling psychic attack and turn it around in the other direction and say this is healing, how much can healing affect the receiver? as much as they love themselves sufficiently to believe that they deserve. So the receiver always limits the power of either psychic attack or healing, which are the same thing, just turned in different directions. Now, one of the unfortunate things that we should know about psychic attack is that we spend a lot of our day on automatic pilot. That means we're not choosing what goes through our minds. As long as you're thinking what you want to think, because you want to think it, and you know what that is, you maintain automatically a protective mechanism around you. But when you leave your mind empty, just because you're not thinking about anything in particular, you may drive a car or push a shopping cart, and something all of a sudden makes you feel angry, irritable, hurt, maybe even painful, sick at your stomach, whatever it is. Could very well be a psychic attack. And if you ask yourself, where is this coming from? An image is likely to come into your mind, because the attacker always sends their energy, their image, along with the attack. So you can usually spot where it's coming from. Now, I'm not telling you this so that you get good at psychic attack. I'm telling you this so that you can become as good with positive energy as you probably already are with negative energy. Do you ever notice that we put a lot more energy into anger than we put into love? Love is gentle, and it doesn't get terribly expressive without getting maudlin. But anger is something we can put a lot of intensity into, and we can give it with a lot more power. Are we more powerful to create sickness on earth than we are to create wellness and healing and aliveness on earth? We need to make a choice as individuals what we send out from ourselves, and we need to make a choice as individuals what we are willing to receive into ourselves. And then we never need to be afraid of psychic attack. If you don't deserve it, if it's not your karma, nobody else has any power over you regardless of what they image toward you. But if you protect yourself so much from psychic attack, you also protect yourself equally as much from healing. When you need healing, become receptive and let it come to you. But always decide through what channels it will come to you. Let it come to you only through the Christ. And whatever energies hit you in the solar plexus or any other place, always decide, and decide this the first thing in the morning, every day of your life, whatever energy comes to me today comes to me through the power of the Christ. Make that decision, and so it is. When you start making that decision, you can start changing your relationship with money. Money is a symbol of value. If you believe that you are valuable, if you really know that you are valuable to the earth, to the family of mankind on earth, when you know that you are valuable as an emissary of Christ on earth, then you know that you are valuable enough to be rich. You're valuable enough to know what to do with the power of money if it comes into your hands. And remember that money doesn't have to come into your hands as sheets of paper. It comes into your hands as the power to do what you are determined to do. And what you should always do is make sure that you don't work for money. If you work for money, you're a slave. And money is a cruel boss. When you work for money, it will tell you what you can do and what you can't do. If we had charged $1,000 for this workshop tonight, which we should have, you might have, if you worked for money, you would have gone to your money and you would have said, "Can I take this workshop?" And money would have said, "No, you got other things to spend this on that are more important to creature comforts, not necessarily to your spiritual growth." Does money tell you what to do? If so, you have a wrong relationship with money. You should tell money what to do. Money should work for you. You should not work for money. What should you work for? you should put your work energy into what you believe ought to be happening on the planet right now, whatever that is. Make sure that it should happen. Let me give you just a little list of rules here that you might want to follow, if you're inclined to. What you do for a career. Number one consideration, it is something that should happen on this planet, something that is needed. So it's established according to the need. Number two, what do you want to do? Do nothing. Oh, it's okay. There are people who will pay you to do nothing. All right. Number two, what you enjoy. If you don't enjoy it, for goodness sake, don't do it. If you do, you're cheating an employer anyway. Because what you don't want to do, you won't do well under any circumstances. Do what you want to do. Life is short. And you don't have to make a living. You have to make a life. And if you spend all your life making a living, then you'll find that suddenly you're 60 years old, you made a living, and there's not enough time left to make a life. Don't get yourself in that situation. Make a life, not a living. And whatever you enjoy doing, if you enjoy it enough, there are people who will pay you to do it. There are people who tell jokes for a living. There are people who have sex for a living. There are, in fact, counselors who stand behind bars for a living. Some of the world's most effective counselors stand behind bars for a living. Serve drinks as an excuse to get people to let you counsel with them. And number three, do what you have a gift for doing. And when I say a gift, I mean something that you enjoy enough to work at it 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, the rest of your life, so that people will notice how marvelous your gift is. Did you get that? Let me say it another way. I was watching Andres Segovia in Norfolk. Happened to be in a seat right down front where I could see those fat fingers. And I don't have fat fingers. See? I don't have fat fingers, but I have tried to play classical guitar, and my fingers seem entirely too fat to do all these tricky little techniques with those strings that are so close together. But Andres Segovia had fat fingers, and I was watching those fat fingers flying like crazy over those strings and doing this amazingly wonderful, wonderful movement of sound and all this. Then it came to interval. I heard a woman behind me say, "Wouldn't it be great to have such a gift?" And you know, I suddenly felt angry with this woman. I wanted to turn around to her and say, "Do you know this man has practiced 8 hours a day, 7 days a week for 40 years to do that, and you call it a gift?" I mean, that is a well-earned gift. Yeah, you can be a really gifted musician, you can be a really gifted writer, you can be a really gifted speaker or bartender or whatever it is. Sexologists, whatever it is that you want to commit yourself to, you can be really good at your gift if you'll give it 8 hours a day, 7 days a week for 40 years. You'll have quite a gift. So do what you have a gift to do. And then 4, have sense enough to ask. Ask is what that all-seeing eye was in that little capstone that said, how do I get this job done? I get it done by guidance, spiritual guidance. So ask. Ask the source of life, what do I need to do with my life to be the most effective person that I can be for my own karma and for what I can contribute to this world, to humanity, and to God? What must I do? When you ask that question, something will drop right in front of you. And then if you're not terribly conscious, you will say, God, I wish you would show me what I'm supposed to do with the rest of my life. As we push it aside, whatever drops in front of you, take it and do it. Do it the very best that you can do it, because what you are really supposed to do, your divine mission in life, lies just beyond that mop and bucket that you were reluctant to pick up and mop the floor with. If it's a mop and bucket that falls in front of you, start mopping. And don't say, oh, my guidance told me I should be a healer. Mop the damn floor first. Then, do you know about Ayurvedic medicine? Ayurvedic medicine is a form of medicine practiced in India in which patients pay the healer as long as they're well. If they get sick, that healer comes into their house, washes the dishes, mops the floor, and takes care of everything until they're well. That's Ayurvedic medicine. And that's a real healer. I think I better send my doctor a note about this. Ask what you're to do with your life, and then work for these things. What should happen, what you enjoy, what your gift is, and what God has told you is what to do with your life. Work for that. The money will come. Just as a natural course of action, you can't stop money from coming to you. There was a man in California a few years ago. He was a dentist. And he got some form of religion or mystic experience which told him that he must give away everything that he had. Give up his job as a dentist, take his family, and live with absolutely nothing. Trust God to take care of his needs. So he gave away his practice, all of his instruments, his house, his car, all his furniture, everything that he owned. He had a wife and 2 kids that wound up in a picnic bench outside Los Angeles. And they were there about 2 days when a reporter spotted them and printed the story in the newsletter, and money came to them from all over the world. And they were giving it away as fast as it could come, and it just kept coming faster than they could give it away. Now that's what it should be like. That's what it will be like if you turn loose of your attachment to it. Whatever you're attached to accumulates right here in a little ball, and the flow of it to you just stops right here because it's not flowing from you as well. When you're attached to money, you'll cling to it, and only a little bit of it will cling to you, because naturally money flows. It's an energy. And an energy is absolutely worthless when it's not in motion. Money is green energy in the United States. Do you know how colorful their energy is in Holland? Do you know what that says about the relationship between the 2 countries? Holland is fun. The United States is sort of green. And green is nice. One of the most restful, healing, balancing energies in the universe. But when you see pink money and blue money, it looks like play money. Did you ever see guilders? You got any guilders, Peter? Marcus? They are really colorful, and they look like phony money. And it's easy to spend because it doesn't look like it's real. But it's so nice and colorful. It's pink and blue and all kinds of different colors. It's really nice. Let it flow from you so that it can flow to you. Money is an energy. Energy is useless when it's static. Keep it alive, keep it growing, keep it flowing. We're going to take a break and come back and talk about precipitation, the law of how to get money to drop into your lap or wherever else you need it, into your bank account if you prefer. all by herself. On Sunday morning, we're going to be talking about a precipitation that resulted in the Fellowship of the Inner Light. I'm going to jump just beyond that right now and talk for a moment about how I learned about precipitation and what I did with it when I discovered it. It actually happened one day when a young couple who was part of our meditation group in Atlanta came in, and the young man had studied some physics, and they were really excited about this discovery that they had just made. They said, when a positive meets a negative, it precipitates. And so they had worked with that a little bit, trying to work out a system to do it, and they spent the morning all the way from waking up until noon denying that they wanted something. And then from noon till night, they would affirm that they wanted that. Their idea was that the positive and negative would clash and precipitate. So when they came in and shared that with us, it didn't sound quite right to me, and they suggested that we do a reading on it, and so we did. And the source said, if you have a need, you already have a negative. All you need to do is add to it the positive, and there you will precipitate. And the source said further, the trick to this, to making it work well, is to understand your need first. Know exactly what the need is and what it would take to replace that need with its fulfillment in your life. So we did it this way. At that time, we needed a building to meet in. At that time, we were meeting in my house, which was a tiny two-bedroom bungalow, and the room that we used for our meditation group was much smaller than that room there, much smaller. Like it could seat 12 comfortably. And the interesting thing is when we began to have worship service, there were people outside the windows participating. Just by putting their head in the windows because we didn't have space. So we really needed a building. And we drew a diagram on a sheet of paper, and we listed the negatives on the left-hand side. And under negatives, we put space. The house was too small. And 2, we listed appearance. It wasn't a prosperous-looking place, if you can imagine the fellowship ever being in such a place. It didn't have any parking space, so we listed that. And what else did we list? There were quite a number of things. We did put down location. We wanted an excellent location so people would know that we exist. And when we had made quite a list, actually it was quite longer than that. There were at least 12 items on the list, as I remember. And then we started balancing those out with what we would need on the other side. When we started talking about space, we had to get sort of specific. We needed a room big enough for congregational worship, because that was something that we wanted to provide. We had actually, in the early days of the fellowship, this little group went around to virtually every church in Atlanta looking for something that we would enjoy. We found one that we really enjoyed. It was called the Ebenezer Baptist Church. It was in the black section of Atlanta, and they had the most wonderful music I'd ever heard in my life. I mean, that was heavenly just to hear those choirs sing. And that black preacher was wonderful. We totally enjoyed being in that congregation. It was quite an enormous congregation. I'll never forget one sermon that he preached about the Apostle Paul. And he was coming to the end of his sermon and saying, you know, finally the Apostle Paul's head was chopped off. And throughout his sermon, he had said, Paul ran into this, and he ran into this, and he ran into this, and he just kept preaching. And this happened, and he just kept preaching. And finally he said, and they chopped off his head, and he just kept preaching. And I thought that sounded sort of familiar. But then we realized that that wasn't exactly what we needed. We wanted an interfaith kind of place where we could worship. So we listed that, and we listed some classroom space and a sanctuary we wanted, and we wanted a bit of a library where we could study and where we could record the tapes and so on. So we listed all these things under space. And under appearance, we said, well, we want something that looks prosperous, but we don't want to look like a church. So we discussed the appearance for a little bit, and we wanted it to be a home-like atmosphere, but sort of elegant and so on. Then we went on to parking, and we thought it'd be really nice to have, you know, some space for a parking lot. We put that down. And location, well, interesting thing happened at this time. Here we are in a group discussion talking about what we're going to precipitate. And there were some people in the group who said, we can precipitate anything. There are no limitations. And then there was the other group over here that was saying, be reasonable. And, well, back then I was in the reasonable group. I didn't want to challenge God too much. And we got to this point when we were saying location, people said, well, obviously the best location in Atlanta is on Peachtree Street. Now that's the street that runs all the way through Atlanta, and it's the main street of downtown, but it also goes right on out. So reluctantly we put down Peachtree Street. I was wondering, you know, whether we could ever afford something on Peachtree Street, but we put it down. And then somebody said, you know, in addition to all of these things, we want like a wooded place where we can walk in the woods. On Peachtree Street? That was exactly my response. What in the world? What, I mean, you know, let's do challenge God, but don't make it impossible. But they wanted woods, so we put down woods. And having finished our list, or we thought we had finished, we went out to look for a building, and we were driving around, and we were driving around everywhere but Peachtree Street. And someone pointed that out, so we took a little trip down Peachtree Street, looking at all these wonderful office buildings and shopping malls and all of the things that were there. And suddenly, right across the street from one of the biggest malls in Atlanta, there was this building that had been sort of left over from the time that this was a residential neighborhood. It's a beautiful building. Had a nice slate roof. It was elegant. It had, you know, a couple of trees. I thought that was sufficient. And we looked at it, we thought, it's absolutely perfect. It's exactly what we want. It had this one nice long room with a stained glass window in the back. And we managed to get inside. We looked around. We all agreed, this looks wonderful. It looks perfect. And we asked the cost. And then we realized that we hadn't put anything about cost on our precipitation list. So we were sort of stunned by the cost, and we went to look elsewhere in Atlanta. But nobody could get that building out of their minds. Everybody kept thinking, that's our building. You know, I know we can't afford it, but that's our building. We should have that. It had parking across the street for 300 cars. And when we went inside the building, went upstairs, looked out the windows, there was a wooded lot that stretched for acres behind it, this great woods, just hidden in metropolitan Atlanta. Looked like it had been created out of our visualization dream. So one young lady in the group said, well, if we left cost off our precipitation list, then perhaps we should go back to the list and put that in there. And so we talked for a little bit about what it should cost, and we wound up just saying, on the negative side, the little house that we had was cheap. And then somebody said, well, but that's not negative, that's positive. We have to put that on the other side. And we decided, no, we don't want to put cheap on the other side. We want to put affordable. So that's what we put down. We wrote down affordable. And then the responsible people in the group said, well, let's talk about what's affordable. What can we afford? And they were saying, well, we could rent it, but we probably can't buy it. Or maybe we could buy it if someone would make the down payment. And then we finally came up with the figure, well, we can afford $400 a month, $450 maybe. So we put that down. And we went back and looked at it and even made an offer, and the people laughed at us, of course. And they were going to develop this thing, and you know, they had all these dreams about it, and there was a freeway that was supposed to go through there, which would make the building quite valuable, the land. They would have gotten a lot of money out of it. So when we went back to do our second precipitation, when we put down affordable and we talked about 450 and so on, we got a call from these people, and they said, we've just found out that the freeway is not going through. And we would like some people in the house just to sort of look after the property, and we'll accept your 450. And it was done. We moved into the house. It was ridiculously cheap for that area. It had everything that we had laid out. And there's one thing that I want to point out that we accomplished in this exercise. It was that we were all of one mind. There wasn't a single person that disagreed, this is the building that we want. Nobody disagreed about the things. I mean, some of us had trouble. You know, I had trouble thinking that there could be woods on Peachtree Street. That was unbelievable to me. And other things I had difficulty adjusting. But by the time we got through the exercise, we had one picture, one vision, single-minded. We were going for it. And one of the things that happened is a young man who had just come into the group made the down payment. And so we were able to go ahead from there to furnish it with the things that we needed to have and to do all the things that we needed to do. There were a couple of interesting things that happened about that building. One I'd like to tell you about. This doesn't have so much to do with precipitation, but I'd like you to know about the power of invocation. We had a young man there who was having a power struggle with another young man. And their power struggle was usually sort of moderately under control as long as I was in town. But I made a trip, and this was really the first tour that I had ever made. We went up into Indiana and through North Carolina and over to Virginia Beach. It was my first trip to Virginia Beach. And while I was gone, this power struggle sort of came to a head. And the one young man who thought he had more invested in this than the other one, and thought he had the right or whatever, he fired the other young man. No authority or anything, but he just told him clean out his desk and got out of there. So he sort of moved out of the building, waiting for me to come back and see what would happen. And in fact, while I was gone, he not only had fired this man, but he had put another sign up over the door. Instead of Fellowship of the Inner Light, it was Humanistic Psychology Institute. So I came back and I found that sign over the door, and I found that Daniel Emanuel had been thrown out and all of these things. So we got together and we talked, and we found that this young man really was out of sorts with everybody else there. He wanted, I mean, he was really interested in humanistic psychology, and that's what he wanted this center to be. So we did everything that we knew how to do. We had meditations together. We had prayer meetings about it. We talked about it. Used all the techniques that we didn't have a 9-step then. We didn't have a 5-step then, but we were working on it. So we worked through all this stuff until his anger became such that his influence when he came on the property could be felt. So we had a meditation one night and we said, what should we do about this? And in our meditation the words came, invoke in that sanctuary the divine name and the sacred presence of Jesus the Christ, and let all who are not comfortable with his presence depart. So we went and did that. We just said that meditation. And we married the salt to the water, which you're going to do tomorrow, with the dollar bill. Be sure and bring that dollar bill back tomorrow, because you're going to bless it in a specific way with what we call a crystallized prayer. We did a crystallized prayer right around that sanctuary. And the next day, this young man came to the property and started to turn into the drive, and then changed his mind, parked in front. And he got out of his car, he started to come onto the property and stepped back. And then from his car, he honked his horn and called for one guy to come out there that he wanted to talk about, but he wouldn't step on the property at all. And it was the first time I had realized that an invocation can be that powerful. This young man was interested in humanistic possibilities, but didn't want the Christ involved. And the prayer had said, let those who cannot abide his presence depart. And it just wasn't possible for him to come into that auric field as long as we were of one mind. Now that is essential. We have to make our minds one if we are going to precipitate a building. Now, if you individually or within your family are going to do something, be careful not to use the authoritarian approach. Don't impose your will on the partner, because if the partner doesn't agree with you, there is sabotage in the relationship. And you don't have a positive meeting a negative. You have a maybe meeting a negative, and maybes precipitate maybes. They're always sort of shaky. They're never quite grounded. You never quite get what you want. On that same trip, we had driven as far as North Carolina. We didn't have much money. I certainly didn't have any money. I had an old car. And we had driven as far as North Carolina, and the thing pooped out. Now, we had the rest of the tour to make. We had to go to Indiana. We had to come to Virginia Beach and get back to our center. So Phil and I, and this was Phil Treadwell, who was traveling with me at the time, we said, why don't we try this precipitation technique? We sat down, we ruled the paper, and we started listing things we want. We both agreed we wanted a station wagon. And we wanted seats that would lie down so that we could nap while we were traveling. And we wanted a nice spiritual color. And he picked blue and I picked green. So we put down blue, green. And we had sort of described this, you know, and we were saying, and this is something that you really ought to hear, we were saying, now, God, we don't need a brand new car. We just want something that will get us through this tour. We never should have said that. But that's what we said. And let me tell you how God got this car to us. We were driving my car in North Carolina, but it didn't have insurance. If anything happened to it, it was just a total loss. But while we were there, our host in North Carolina had lent us his daughter's car. And so we borrowed this car, and she took our car and went up into the mountains for a nice sightseeing tour and enjoyed it. But while we had her car, we wrecked it. And her uncle, her father's brother, owned a used car lot. And it had a station wagon that was half blue and half green, had seats that laid down, and the cost of that car was exactly the amount that we got for the insurance to fix her car. So she got her car fixed, replaced, we got a car, and left our old junker there, and we drove to Virginia Beach and back to Atlanta. When we got to Peachtree Street, the transmission fell out. So this time we said, God, we deserve a brand new car. And we got it. But there was one more incident that happened on that trip that I have to tell you about. There was one morning that I had gotten up earlier than Phil, and I had a bite to eat. And he was a little grouchy about that, because we drive, and he's kind of resenting the fact that I ate and I didn't get him up and feed him, and he was hungry. So I said, okay, we'll stop and get a bite. And he said, well, he was in one of those kid code phases. well, if you don't want to eat, I don't want to eat either, you know, and this kind of thing. So I said, okay, I'll have a little salad. Let's just go in and have a meal. We went into this restaurant, and he ordered a seafood salad, quite expensive. And I said, well, I just want a little dish of regular luncheon salad or something. And we sat, we waited. Finally, they came out, and they brought him this sort of dried-up salad with a couple of little shrimp on top. And I found it offensive. And I was saying to Phil, good grief, I mean, this should have wedges of eggs around it and tomatoes. And I was describing this glorious seafood salad. And the waitress came out to me, and she plunked the salad down in front of me, and she said, here, chef made a mistake, you might as well eat it. And walked away, and it was just what I had described. And Phil looked at me, and he said, is that responsible? And until he said that, I hadn't realized I did precipitate that salad. I mean, I had put together all those items without canceling anything in my mind. This is the big problem with precipitation. If you don't believe you deserve it, you'll cancel it. You'll cancel your order. And this is what happens when we say, God, I want $1 million. I believe that I deserve it. I can use it in the right way. You're the richest father in the universe, and I ask for this, and then I think, oh, I probably shouldn't be asking for money. And it just sort of, the bottom goes out. We cancel our order. And that's the biggest problem with precipitation. Yes, Patrick?
I did exactly the same. The automobile I have right now, I precipitated. The exact color, the exact price, the year, the amount of mileage that I wanted, which was impossible. And as soon as I got it, I wanted to pay $18,000 for it, and that's exactly the price of the car. So when I got the car, I was pretty overjoyed that it happened very, very quickly. And I walked out into the parking lot, and I looked at the car, and I had another car to sell, but I wanted that one first. So I walked out, and I saw the car, and I became overwhelmed with guilt that I don't deserve that automobile. I should have taken the money and given it to children, Children's Aid Society or the hospital or something. I became so overwhelmed with the guilt that it took me over 2 months to sell my other car at a loss of $4,000.
That's
incredible.
That's an extremely important point, because if we get something for less than what we believe it's worth, we will force ourselves to pay the difference. Don't ever try to get something for less than it's worth. It either won't work, it'll break down, or you won't get it. Something will go wrong. Go ahead, you had something to share. Take her a mic there, Jenny.
And I used it myself to get a car. And like Patrick, I wrote down everything I wanted. Exactly. I had been in this car belonging to a friend. It was far more than I could ever afford. I said, I can have that money, And I had said it to this dealer who dealt in the kind of car I wanted, but he laughed at me because he knew that I just didn't have the money. And I said, well, if ever hear of a car, you know what I am, it was half a joke. And he called me one day and he said, I heard of a car in Dublin. So I made a deal over the phone, decided to take the car, and it was mine. His description just, And when I got the car, the only thing that I wasn't quite sure about was whether I wanted the sunroof to be glass or solid. Because I thought that I wasn't quite sure whether the glass would be sufficiently warm during winter, our winter. When I got the car, I had both. It was glass with a sliding thing.
Yes.
The one thing I did not put down, because the friend, Noel, who had this car before me, told me that these cars do 42 miles per gallon. I said, that's great. So I didn't put that down. And the only thing I got was a car that didn't do 30 miles per gallon. Every single detail, including the color, in every way, comfort and things that I didn't even know I wanted, I just put them down because I'd seen them. We're all in the car. But the mileage Okay.
Yeah, do know on the left side, do know what the negatives are. List them as completely as you can. I have to tell a story on Hugh Lynn Casey with apologies, but he's recorded the story, so I think it's all right to repeat it. Hugh Lynn learned about this technique of precipitation many years ago. It was 1964, and he wanted a black 1964 Cadillac. So he cut out a picture of it and put it on his mirror. He visualized it every day. But keep in mind now, he wanted this car for appearance. He never mentioned in his precipitation that he wanted it for transportation. Now, he went off to Europe on a lecture tour and came back, and someone had parked a black 1964 Cadillac in his black backyard. It was up on blocks. It did not run. It never did. He got what he precipitated. It was appearance. We have to learn from these things. Ask what you will, but know that you're likely to get it. And consider one more thing. Where would you be right now if God had answered every prayer with a yes to everything you ever asked for in your life? Where would you be now? Mike, here.
I want to get some clarification on this. For instance, if you're asking for a car, which is something I've been working on now for a few months, what do you put in the on the negative side, Paul? I mean, what you
Your need.
already have, and what what you don't like about what you already have, and how you're going to compensate on the new car.
That's right. Whatever is inadequate about it, list it.
What you already have.
Right.
Okay.
And list what you do need to get out of it.
Okay.
I need it for this. If you need a prestigious looking car, if that's important, put it down. God doesn't mind you looking prosperous. Don't feel guilty about those things. One of the ways to cancel this is to feel guilt about it. That will cancel it if you don't feel that you deserve it. So put down very honestly what you do want, what you're willing to receive, and then check inside yourself and say, now, do I really deserve this? Do I really believe this? Am I willing to receive it? And then one more thing that I would do if I were you. This I always suggest you do. When you get your dream image and you know that's what you want, go into your meditation, go up to the 5th terrace, put it on the altar, and release it. And say to God, if this is not meant for me, I'm quite all right without it. I release it to you. If it comes to you then, it's likely to come within 24 hours, 48 at the most. God doesn't need a year to get it to you. You'll be surprised how fast God can make his arrangements. And some of the arrangements are really strange. Some things come in the most circuitous ways to get to you. But ask what you will. Ask and see if you and God want the same thing for you, and if not, why not? Don't be afraid to ask God. If you don't want me to have this, why not? I want to understand why you don't want me to have this. But if you feel inside, this is not right, this is not what God is wanting for me, ask why. And then ask how you can learn that lesson without suffering. Suffering is not necessary to learn whatever you need to know. Remember those 12 paths that we drew there, the paths through the wilderness. Those are the paths of karma. That's the hard way. Go for grace. Just say, if I have something in my past that makes me feel unworthy, guilty, or I can't accept something wonderful in my life, Lord, I want to understand why. And if I will understand that inside, without having to have it played out in drama in my life, then I've claimed the law of grace. I get the understanding without the illustration, without having to do it the hard way. Keep this in mind. We're going to talk a lot more about creation tomorrow. But the way to prosperity that you want to take is the creative way, not the competitive way. In a competitive way, for you to get something means that somebody else has to have less. Creativity doesn't take anything away from anybody to give it to you. Go for creativity. And know, When God that made this universe, he had a lot of the substance left over that he used to make the universe. This is what I call the formless stuff. It never got to be anything, and it has always wanted to be something. You're full of it. You're full of formless, creative stuff. And the only thing that scientists know about this stuff is they have one word for it. When you think, now this is from a physics point of view now, this is not metaphysics, this is not the religious point of view, but from physics, the physicists say, when you think, you produce electricity, and this formless stuff becomes excited. That's their word, excited. And that gives me the image of this formless stuff that can become anything. It can become $1 million, it can become a brand new car, it can be a brand new center for the fellowship. When we form that image and tell it what to do, we are co-creators with God, the formless stuff gets excited. So we get this wonderful image, and this formless stuff says, oh boy, now we get to be something. We're going to be something. We're going to come into form. We're actually going to, we get our chance to, and then we say, oh, we probably shouldn't ask for this. And the formless stuff says, oh. We shouldn't tease the formless stuff. It wants to be something wonderful. So have the guts to be a co-creator that makes wonderful things that make a difference on this planet. We can do it. We're going to start again tomorrow at 10. Thomas is going to spend some time with us, and we'll talk more about the formless stuff, how to get the image exact, how to hold the image until we impress it upon the formless substance. That's an essential step. We have to impress it upon the substance, then let it precipitate. We'll talk about how to do that tomorrow. Patrick.
There will be a tape of this evening for sale. Who would like one of these tonight?
Hey, the reason I'm asking that is because we talked, for those of you who weren't here, we talked about relationships and primary relationships, and a primary relationship is one that is capable of causing you pain. How many of us have a primary relationship with money? Okay. Is everybody aware of the point I'm trying to make? I want to go farther with this stuff about what are our beliefs about money. If I may make a judgment, listening to people share in the last session, it is interesting to note that most people shared about money from the perspective of competition. Did you notice that? Competition with money. Competing with money or competing with people who have money. This is a real responsive group today. You understand the point I'm trying to make? A lot of what I was hearing a lot of people say was describing money from a point of competition versus a point of creativity. We are raised to believe that we have to compete for money. In the workplace, we teach our children that you have to compete for money, and you can watch children do it. If you've got 2 children or more, you can watch them compete for money right in the family unit. Who's going to get the most expensive coat? Who's going to get the most expensive pair of shoes? And so on and so forth. Very similar to the thought. How many of us have had the thought that if Trump would just let go of some of his money, I would have more? You following that kind of thinking? It's a thought that I've heard most people share from one perspective or another. It's one that a lot of us go through. If the people with the money would let it go, then people like us could have more money. Okay? Which is going after money from the point of competition. All right? I'm just going to share a bunch of one-liners, and I want to get also get some more responses from the group to get really clear on what exactly is my relationship with money. What exactly is it? How much power have I given money? You know, one of the things you learn at an early age is it's not polite to ask somebody how much money they have. Why? Why are we not supposed to ask people how much money we have or they have? What? Okay, it's considered personal. It's considered to be a part of self. All right? Money is a tool in this universe. And therefore, if money doesn't matter, what are we saying to ourselves? If I say to you, money doesn't matter, it's not important how much money I have, what am I saying?
It doesn't become matter
Okay,
in every area.
that's one way to look at it.
Make it into matter. What matters to us, we make.
Right.
Matter.
Okay.
Aren't you in a way saying I don't matter?
Exactly. Exactly. That's my point. But I didn't want to say that. I want some of you to say that. All right? When we say money doesn't matter, we're saying I don't matter, or we're saying I'm not of value. Okay? Because the one thing you can't do is get away from dealing with money in a culture that uses money as a tool, as a medium of relating and exchanging. You can't get away from it. It's impossible. So to say money doesn't matter is the lie that is closest to the truth. But we use that phrase when we don't believe that we matter or we have value, or we feel, some people are talking about the guilt of having money. There's an interesting thing about money. You can't have money that goes beyond the numbers you count to. Should I say that another way? If you think in terms, I'm really trying to get this, because this is a big key with money. If you think in terms of 1 to 100, then you're limited at 100. And this doesn't sound to me like it's coming out as clear as I wanted it to. You understand what I'm saying? You draw your line wherever you draw it. So how many of us in here think in terms of $100? How many of us in here think in terms of 1,000? How many of us in here think in terms of 10,000? 100,000? That's okay. So 100,000 is beyond this group. Okay, let me share the principle this way and then come back around to it. They did some interesting experiments years ago with counting. Okay? And they did the experiments with animals, and they discovered something interesting. A pig can count to about 8. Now, get this principle because it applies to us. And what they discovered is if a pig has 9 piglets, they can take 1 away and the pig will not notice it. If they take 2 away, the pig panics. The reason it doesn't notice the 9th one is because it can't count to 9. It only counts to 8. Right. Are you following me? So after 8 units, the pig cannot relate. Now this is true. It doesn't relate. It doesn't know that you took one of its piglets if you take the 9th one. If you take the 8th one, it knows it and it goes into turmoil. Okay? The same principle applies to us when it comes to money. If I don't think in terms of 100,000, I will never have it. I can't have it because it's outside of the world I live in. You following me? This is where so many people want to win the $100,000 lottery, the $1 million lottery, but they don't think in terms of $1 million, and therefore they don't win it. Or that, here's another experiment they did. People who win lotteries outside of their world of counting, within 3 years, lose the money, and they're back into the world they live in. People who think in terms of $1 million, if you take it away within 3 years, they'll have another $1 million because they think in terms of that. You getting the point I'm trying to make now about what really is my relationship with money? How high can I count? How far can I count? And part of that is programmed into us. Here's another statistic that's been researched. especially for males, but this is changing. But they discovered that a son rarely will earn more money than his father. And if he gets a career that produces more money than his parents, he will usually lose it within 3 years and drop back into the category of income that he grew up in. And you can check this out for yourself, but this is research that's been done. It is rare to find a son who will earn more money than his father and maintain it for an extended period of time. So it boils down to how high do we count? Are you with me? How many people in here think in terms of millions? Okay. How many of us think in terms of $100 or less? I can tell you how to answer the question I'm asking you. If you want to get the pure gold of this weekend, do some homework. Go home, open up your checkbook, and look at the average deposit or the average balance. And that will tell you how high you count. Are you with me? How much money do you usually have? And that's where you've put your ceiling. Yes, you can count your savings. That's where your ceiling is with money. Okay, and it's, there's the old phrase, Paul didn't touch on it last night, he probably will today, but I'm going to use it before he gets here. Poverty is a virtue. All right? Poverty is a virtue. And that's a goddamn lie. Poverty is a sin. Are you with me? It is a lie to say that poverty is a virtue. And if you stop and think about it, stop and think about some of the great saints who have gone down in history. There's one alive today on the planet, Mother Teresa. Now, the average person will look at Mother Teresa and say, here's an example of poverty is a virtue. What you may not know about Mother Teresa is she is literally a multi-millionaire. Generates millions of dollars, controls millions of dollars daily. Gandhi was a multi-millionaire. There was a statement made about Gandhi once. The statement said this. One of his top aides said, it is costing millions of dollars to make it look like you live in poverty. Millions. St. Francis of Assisi, multi-millionaire. Paramahansa Yogananda, multi-millionaire. There is a direct relationship between money, yourself, and your source. And you insult your source when you do not have enough money to do the things you want to do. It's an insult to the source of life. It's an insult to the Mother Earth to not have enough money to do whatever we want to do. Here's something else about money that's fascinating that Paul didn't cover last night. It usually goes in what he did last night. Money cannot lie. It's impossible for money to lie. We can lie about money, but money itself can't lie. And what that says is, maybe we should go around the room quick. Let's start right here and just in a one-liner, what's the most important thing to you in life? It's true. The most important thing in life. Okay. Most important thing in life. Free time. Personal growth. Okay. Okay. Freedom. Continuation of the planet.
Inner peace.
Inner peace.
What?
Most important thing in life.
Money.
Money. Okay.
No,
The most important thing, I think, is health and growing spiritually.
Okay.
You know, that's why we're here.
Being happy.
Being happy?
Mostly just feeling good by yourself.
Feeling good about self?
Love.
Love?
Personal happiness.
Personal happiness?
Being okay.
Being okay. Over here. Most important thing in life.
Happiness, money,
Happiness.
everything.
Okay.
You said something else before.
Yeah, what was it?
What did I say?
Sex.
Oh,
Sex.
That's 3 letters.
That's another good one.
Harmonious relationships.
Harmonious relationships.
Personal fulfillment.
Personal fulfillment. Okay. Mel?
I'm saying being happy.
Happy? Personal growth. Now, there's two things that I want you to look at about what we just did. Number one, if you just answered the question truthfully, your checkbook can confirm it or deny it. Your checkbook will tell you what the most important things about life are for you. And it's recorded in your checkbook. You might want to look at your checkbook closely and see if you use your money to produce what you just shared as the most important thing. Or if your money says there's actually other things that are more important than what I just said. The other thing I want you to see about what we were just talking about is whatever you just said is the most important thing, it will take money to make that happen. Mm-hmm.
My checkbook at times has had a lot of money. But in the circumstances that I'm in right now, not earning anything,
Mhm.
being here, my checkbook doesn't have near the balance. I mean, how do these circumstances come in and mean what you're just saying?
Well, the point I'm saying about money doesn't lie. So your checkbook will tell you what is of value to you, or at least what you think is of value, or what you think you have to be spending your money on. Okay? It's interesting in the New Age metaphysical world. Something that I've heard 1,000 times is you shouldn't charge for God-given gifts. You shouldn't charge for God talents, if you will. How many of us have said that? Okay? We shouldn't have to pay for this or that. And it's really fascinating that when it comes to God, it should be free. We'll spend thousands of dollars for homes, thousands of dollars for carpet, thousands of dollars for clothes, thousands of dollars for cars, thousands of dollars for food, and I want it from God for free. Are you hearing my point? Where we put value? Money is a reflection of you. And it's not the other way around. The way you relate to money is the way you relate to yourself. I know I'm hearing some of you disagree with me. I'm not saying you should be agreeing. Don't throw some of these principles out too quickly. What are the beliefs about money? Why do we hide our money? Why do we protect our money? You know, one of the things that I like to share with people is it's easier to get up here and talk about sex than it is money. It really is. Money's one of the hardest topics there is to talk about because most people don't know what they actually believe about it and don't want to uncover what they believe. For those of us who have a lot of it, we justify it. And for those of us who have a lack, we justify it. We justify having a lack of money. And the justifying of it maintains the lack. It's fascinating to watch how it works. Money is a part of the system. And it's either a bad part or a good part. But that's your choice. Money of itself is good. You understand my point? Of itself, it's good. We decide We give it the power it has to affect us positively or negatively. But you can't get through a given day without relating to it. You understand what I'm saying? You're going to relate to it one way or another. And it's interesting that most people who believe money doesn't really matter also have a relationship of resenting people who have it, resenting people who donate it, and at the same time needing people to donate it to them. It's a paradox. It's a paradox. You go right around the circle. You with me? You know, and some of the things that Marilyn and some of you were talking about, it's really interesting. Money has a value for all of us. And it is a personal relationship. And when we give somebody money, we are giving an exchange of value. And this is why even with our children, we resent them for asking, because once they've asked, we can't freely give it. And that's part of what you were talking about. And that's that circle. We want to freely give it, and therefore we can even resent our children when they ask, because that takes away the ability to freely give it. You following me? So even with our own offsprings, when it comes to money, money can get between us. That's how much power it has on the planet. That's how important it is. I really want you to give some time to looking at Mother Teresa's and Gandhi's and some of these people who we respect and looking at the amount of money they control. Yes?
I still have a sense that there's an ideal society in which money doesn't, it's not the form of currency being used. People exchange goods and services, and it's never an issue. I know it's not immediately possible, but I do feel that eventually that we will have this.
True. I think we will, but you do realize that that same system could end up where we are with money. You following me? If you try to take money out of it, there's still going to become some kind of medium for the exchange. Mm-hmm. And it's how you view that that makes it what it is. Of itself, it'll be good. Of itself, money